Hey guys, it is Ben here, and today I'm going to be walking through the vaccine hack the box challenge. So I've just solved this one, and I think it's pretty cool. It involves a wide variety of different techniques and different things to do to eventually get the root flag. And I'm going to be walking through all of it in this video. So let's begin. Um, I will just copy and paste the IP. There we go. So I've got the IP in my clipboard. I'm connected to the VPN, and let's just get some terminals. Nice. Um, what I'm going to do is just CD in all of these terminals to vaccine walkthrough. Nice. There we go. So on this one over here, I'm going to make my directories I like to make. I want to make an nmap directory, a recon directory, and an exploits. This is what I usually do, and I'm going to start off with an map scan covering all the ports. So there we go, covering all the ports. I'm going to output this to mmap/initial.txt. So that's going to scan all the ports. It's going to see which of these ports are open. We can use that information to discover the possible entry points. So we can see our mmap scan has come back with 2 ports open. So we can specify these 3 ports open, FTP, SSH, and HTTP. And I'm going to do service version scanning here. So I want to see what service is running on these ports. We've been told FTP, SSH, and HTTP are running. We don't know for certain that is the case. I'm going to run default scripts, and I'm going to run TAC04 operating system. I'll put the IP in there, and I'm going to output this to mmap_thorough.txt. Once again, like usual, I need to be sudo to execute this. And while that's going there, let's get Firefox open, and then let's see what this web service is. So we know it's on HTTP. We've got the IP here, 57. So Megacorp login is this login page. We don't know what the username or password is. We could try perhaps exploit this, but let's go for the low-hanging easy fruit first and see what else we can find. So our more thorough nmap scan has come back. We can see we're able to access the FTP service with anonymous login. So that is basically there's a username called you can authenticate without a password. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's just cd into recon, and let's make an FTP directory. cd into FTP, and let's look on this FTP server. Let's see what is actually running. So 2857, and at this point here we will set the username to be anonymous. For the password, we can really enter anything, it doesn't matter. It will authenticate successfully, as we can see. We can use the ls command to see what files are available to us. There's this backup.zip file, and that is interesting. I don't know what this contains, but we can download this onto our desktop. And I'll X out our desktop, into the directory. And we can use the unzip command to unzip this file. And we can see there's a password needed to get in. We don't know the password, but there is a way around this. We can use a tool called zip2john. This basically converts this backup.zip file into a hash which we can crack, and we can then crack the password to this zip file, and then we can unzip it. So let's pipe this into zip_hash like I did before, And let's just see. So we've got the hash file there, zip underscore hash. We can just have a look at it, and we can see it's using this pkzip format. We can see a bit more about the contents of the file. So it contains this style.css and this index.php file. So this is perhaps indicating this may be some sort of source code we're looking at here, and we want to crack this hash to find to get the contents of the source code. So there are a few ways you can crack hashes. There's a few tools you can use. One of them is John, and one of them is Hashcat. There's probably more. Those are the two I know. John is, I think it's easier for beginners. You don't always need to specify the hash format. It can sometimes recognize it. Hashcat is a bit more powerful. It lets you have a bit more control over your computer's resources. But we don't really necessarily need that. So I'm going to use the John tool here. And we need to specify the hash we're using. So the hash is, I saved it as zip hash. So John, and then we can specify the zip hash, zip underscore hash. And I'm not going to brute force all the different combinations. I'm going to take a guess that the password used is in a list of common passwords, and that would be the RockU password list. This is a common word list which is used. It consists of thousands and thousands of common passwords, and we will basically try each one of these. I'm going to tee this into zip underscore password.log, and we'll see what we find here. So we'll try crack this hash. Okay, we've got a little bit of an error. No password hashes left to crack. Okay, so I think it may have saved it from last time. If you were doing this and you're walking through, this should show you the hash. I believe you can go John show like so, and it should show you the cracked hashes. Zip underscore hash. It's got some history. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll actually tee this into zip underscore password. So basically, why this command didn't work, before recording this, I went through and did this challenge. John saves the past hashes. So if you try crack a hash you've previously already cracked, to save on resources, it has a memory and it checks there first. So anyway, I've got this zip underscore password.log, and this contains the password zip underscore password. Before doing this, I'm just going to make directory hashes or hash. I'm going to move the zip underscore hash .txt, and I'm going to move this zip underscore password.log into this hash directory. I'm going to cd into the hash directory. I'm going to change my directory. And now we've got the zip underscore password. So zip underscore password, and we can see the password here. This is the password used to on our zip file. So now we've got access to that. We can try this again. We can say unzip backup.zip, and then it asks us for the password, and that works. We've successfully got the source code now. So what I'm going to do is just make a directory source code. I'm going to move index.php and style.css into the source code directory. I'm going to cd into the source code directory, and I'm going to have a look at this index.php file. So we've got this title Megacorp login. If you look at here, we've got the Megacorp login as well. So it sort of looks like this is the source code to the HTTP service, or the website which is hosted by the HTTP service, which we found earlier. So perhaps we could use this to we could take these credentials and authenticate against it. So let's just get a little walkthrough.txt just so I can write some of my notes here. So we've got this session start, and then it uses some PHP code, and it basically says if the if the post parameter username and the post parameter password is set. So I'm guessing we can test this out. That when we that's not where I wanted to go to. I'll try this again. There we go. When we went to this website, admin. Let's just try this, and we sent a request. You can see it sends a post request, and we can look at the request, and it is this username and password parameter. So we can go back to here, and it basically says, is this username post parameter set? Yes, it is. Is this password post parameter set? Yes, it is. Okay. And then it says, well, is the username admin? We set the username as admin, and then it has this another statement it checks. It basically says, is the MD5 hash of the post parameter password equal to this value here? Okay, so MD5 hashing, that is a common hash function. It's a if you didn't know, hash functions are one way. You can't reverse them in a function. You can use a word list to crack them, just like we did with that zip hash. So what we can do here is we can say, I'm going to write this up. So on the web server, we know the credentials are username, and that's admin, and the password we don't know for certain yet. So I'm going to write this here. I'm going to quit out of this one, and what I'm going to do is just cat this out, index.php, just so I can copy the password hash. We know what the password hash is, but we don't know what the password is. So I'm going to sort of do a repeat of what we did. Password hash is this, and we know it's MD5. So I'm going to sort of do what we did before. Clear. I'm going to go back. So in our FTP directory, we have a hash directory. And I'm going to vi password hash.txt. I'll put the hash in there so we can pop this into John, and we'll sort of do a repeat of what we did before. So we know that we want to use John. We know the format now is MD5. If it's just a raw hash like this, John doesn't do a good job of recognizing it's MD5. So for certain cases, we do actually have to specify the format. So I'm going to say, look, the format is raw MD5. The hash file I set as password hash. The word list we'd like to use, like before, is going to be user share word lists rocku. And I want to tee this into password cracked.log. This may, like before, basically say I've already done this, but we'll see. Yeah, so it's got a memory of when I did this challenge previously. So I can actually do John show, and then I can supply the password hash like so, and I'll tee this into password underscore cracked.log. One sec, let me just check in this password hash. Yeah, it's containing the hash there, and it's saying 0 passwords cracked, 2 left. I don't know why it isn't. And then when I actually try to crack it, loaded 1 password, 0 passwords left to hash. Now if I do it, that is strange. And if I go into password underscore cracked. No, it doesn't contain it there either. Okay, that's a bit strange. I am gonna change tool halfway there. I'll give you a demonstration of how Hashcat works. So Hashcat is another password cracking tool. It's, yeah, like I said, it's a bit more powerful. It offers a bit more flexibility. So it's not as easy to use. You have to actually specify. There's this TAC A flag for the type of attack you'd like to use. TAC A flag is a word list attack, so I'm going to use that. M is where you specify the format of your hash. We know it's an MD5 hash from memory. I know this is 0. The actual hash file is going to be password hash.txt, and the word list is going to be user share word lists rockq.txt. So let's see if this one cracks it. We'll wait. And it has cracked it. So we can now see this password here is QWERTY. Password is QWERTY789. So I'm a bit confused why John didn't work there. But we got around it and used a different tool. We've now got the credentials for this admin web account. So let's try log on here. So we know it's admin and then QWERTY 789, was it? Yes, it was. So we've got this Megacorp car catalogue, and there's this search feature, and if we just search something, it's passed into a get parameter up here. So what if we just did search and then put a star? Does that return? That returns nothing. Okay. What if we just search for Sandy, which is one of the names here? What does this come up with? And then it returns here. So maybe we're searching. From some sort of database. This could perhaps indicate, look, we may be pulling from a SQL database somewhere. We could possibly be able to do SQL injection. Okay, before I get too far ahead, I'm going to have a look what flags we've got so far, because we've definitely got a few. So, besides SSH and HTTP, what other service is hosted on this box? That would be FTP. What service can be configured to allow login with any password for a specific username? What is the username? Anonymous. What is the name of the file downloaded over this service? That would be backup.zip. What script comes with the John the Ripper toolset and generates the hash from a password protected zip archive in a format that allows cracking attempts? That will be zip2john. There we go. And what is the password for the admin user on the website? That will be QWERTY789. Okay, so we've got to this point here. It's interesting. If you looked at the next question, it sort of gives another indication. It backs up this idea that we're going to be using SQL injection, and it says what option can be passed in to get command execution via SQL injection. You can do some research on that, and I'll go through this discovery at the moment. So we've got this web page here, right? And it's got this search parameter, and this get parameter it lets us search the database of cars. We know we want to use SQL Map. SQL Map is a tool that automates a lot of the process of SQL injection, and we're told that what parameter, what option can be passed to get command execution via SQL Map. So let's just do some research. Let's just search up SQL Map syntax. Cheat sheet. Hacktricks is often quite good. So look, we're doing a GET request, so we'll probably have to use this. we can sort of, while we're doing this here, what I'll do is I'll get this up here, and let's just write out a SQL map query. So we're going to be attacking this IP, and it's going to be a GET request injection. So look, we need to supply the IP we're attacking here, which, just get it up, is 10.129.28.57. The web page we're actually on, the admin dashboard, goes to dashboard.php, so don't know why I did that down there. Dashboard.php, and then the get parameter is search. So we're going to pass through a search parameter, and we'll say search is equal to something. It doesn't really matter what we put here, but let's just say it's equal to 1, for example. If you go back to the cheat sheet, it tells you, look, to specify the parameter that we'll be attacking, you do this TACP, and in the example it's giving you there, it says ID. In our example, it will be search. And yeah, we've got fairly far, but you may have realized when SQL map runs this command, it's not going to be running under the admin credentials. It will be trying to go to this dashboard.php page, but it will probably be getting a 403 permission error because I needed to authenticate first. When I authenticated and logged in, I would be given a cookie so that any further requests made to this page remembers I am admin, or I've authenticated as admin. So if we look in our cookies here, we can see we've got this PHP session ID. This basically saves the admin session in the browser as a cookie, and any further requests I make to the web page, I supply this so it remembers that I authenticated as admin. So we need to find a way we can add this cookie. So let's just search SQL map cookie. We should be able to find this, and that's not what I wanted to do. Let's see, let's look at the syntax. How is this done? So there's this tag cookie option. So perhaps we could try this, I guess. We could say, look, I want to supply a cookie, and the cookie, the name of the cookie is PHP session ID. The value of that cookie is this. That is the session cookie I was given by the web server when authenticating as admin. And I also, if you can remember the hack the box, it says how can we get a shell? How can we get an actual run system commands? So we can search this up as well. We can say, look, shell from SQL map tag. We can Google, and we can see there's this tac OS shell. We can put it into hack the box, and we get a correct answer. So that sort of confirms that is the right thing to do. So let's do that. Let's go tac OS shell, and I'm thinking, is this anything else I need to add? I don't think so. Let's just write that there. I want to actually go like this. I'm going to cut out, or on the tail, the walkthrough, because that's right on the end. And I'm just going to copy this, and let's just run this command. Let's see if this works. So let's run the command here. Nice. And it's doing some checking. It noticed the actual server being used is PostgreSQL, and it asks us if you want to skip test payloads for other database servers. And I'm going to say, yeah, I'm not going to bother trying other database servers. And then I'm going to say yes again. And then it does the testing. It automates a lot of the manual SQL injection I could have done. And we'll see what it returns. and it is definitely is noticed that this search parameter is appeared to be injectable. We can exploit it, and it's asking me. It noticed this get parameter is vulnerable, so it's recognized we can do an SQL injection on it. It's asked us if we want to keep testing for others. I'm going to say no, because we've discovered something is vulnerable. Let's just try exploit it. And it popped an OS shell. We've got a shell, we can do ID. And it asks us if you want to retrieve the command standard input. I'm going to say A. This will basically give us the. We could have done yes, and then each time we do a command, it will ask us this again. If you do the A command, you only need to ask it once. So do some more enumeration, basic enumeration, and we can see we're running this user Postgre, and yeah, we've got a very basic shell. I like to use Meterpreter. The Meterpreter shell is quite powerful, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use MSF Venom to generate a shell, and it's going to be, if we do some basic enumeration here, we can just double check the architecture. So yeah, it's running Linux. It's x64 architecture, so we can generate an x64 payload. We want a Meterpreter payload. We want to reverse TCP. The L host, my IP is 10.10.16.31. The port I will connect it to, I'm just going to do the elite port 31337. The type of file we'll be generating is going to be an ELF, a Linux executable, and I'm going to output this as RevShell. So we'll generate this MSF Venom payload, and on this top one here, I'm going to open up MSF console. I'm just going to move this RevShell into exploits and cd into exploits. I'm now going to host a web. Pardon me. I'm going to host a Python basic HTTP server, so I can download the file onto the box. I'm going to use Python TACM HTTP server, and I just want to remember what command did I use to. Was it 444? I think it was 444. So I'm gonna. I've got a HTTP server there. I'm now going to try curl this. So I'm going to say curl HTTP, and I'll put my IP here to download the executable. And it's on port 1234. The file is RevShell. I'm going to output this as a RevShell, and it's saying no output, but I've got it. I can definitely see it's made a GET request, so I'm going to do ls to see if the file's there, and it's found this RevShell. So I just want to see, does it have this executable permission on it? It doesn't. You can only read and write. I'm going to do chmod to change the permissions to +x, which adds an executable bit on the permission, and I'll apply that to the RevShell file. I'll do this again just to double check the permissions are held. It's now got this executable bit. Nice. So I'm going to use multi-handler, and I'm going to set the payload to Linux x64 Meterpreter reverse TCP, like so. I'm going to show options to see if I need to change anything. I need to change the L host, my listening host, to 10.10.16.31. I'm going to go back on here. I'm going to run, so I'm going to be listening for connections, and I'm going to run this RevShell file. One thing I noticed when doing this challenge is this Meterpreter session is very unreliable. It looks like I'm not getting a connection here. One sec. I just want to double check the command I used is on the right port. It's not. Okay, so that's why I need to connect to this again. I'm going to set L port 31337. I'm going to run. Now it's listening on the right port. Once this successfully... Oh, it looks like it was already running in the background. I've got the Meterpreter shell. One thing I noticed is this Meterpreter shell wasn't reliable. It kept on cutting out when I was doing this. What I did notice is if I quickly Python 3, I tried to let's get a better shell. Let's get a TTY shell. So I'm going to import pty.spawn, and then it's bin bash like so. So I've got a pty shell. What I did find is if you start this directory, there's a .ssh. So let's cd into .ssh, and there's a id_rsa. There's a private key, the SSH private key for this user. That is something we can definitely take advantage of. So I'm just going to cat out this id_rsa, and I've got it here. I don't need this SQL map box anymore, so I'm just going to go like this, and I'm going to cd into, it doesn't really matter where, I'll do it into recon actually, it's a bit nice, it's some reconnaissance we found. Make directory SSH, cd into SSH. There we go. I like having a nice organized write-ups with like subfolders for all of my findings. So vi id_rsa. I'll put this in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if this Meterpreter session cuts out, because when I was doing it earlier, it was cutting out every 5 or so minutes, which was really annoying. But I eventually found this RSA file, this SSH key file, this private key file, which can be used to authenticate against SSH. One thing, if you look at the IDRSA, it's got read permissions across all users. If you tried to use this as a SSH file, you'd get an error. So, for example, you do tac I to supply a file, and we'll supply this file here, and you'll supply the user and the IP, which is, let me just double check, because that's not, is 28.57. We say yes, I will trust this, and it says permissions are too open. So that's what I was on about. I'm going to change the permissions of this file by going chmod +x. No. I think these do it, yeah. So this basically, if you now look at the file, I only have read and write access. These other groups were for the groups and others, and now my Kali user can only do it. So we can use this SSH command again, and we've got an SSH shell. This is a little bit better because it has like tab completion than this Meterpreter shell. I can now kill this Meterpreter shell. We don't really need it. And let's go have a look at the flags. Let's see where we got to. Can we get any more flags? Let's see. So it's asking us what option can we pass into SQL map to get a command execution. This was the OS shell option. And now it's asking us what program can the Postgres user run as root using sudo. So typically you would use sudo -l, and this would list the capabilities of your current user as sudo. So it would say, look, there's these binaries or these commands which you can run as sudo without a password or with a password. So let's just do this. And you can see it's asking for us for a password. We can try some other passwords. So we can try QWERTY789. That doesn't work. You could perhaps try some of the other passwords, and I've tried that. It didn't work either. So I basically needed to find this password of this Postgres user. And this bit took me a while, but I did get it eventually. So, there we go, I'll clear this up. What I eventually realized is the HTTP service. The HTTP service is going to be running under a different user. This Postgres user is just for the database, right? And the the user running the web server would need to authenticate to the database somehow, right? So on this dashboard, where is it? On this dashboard.php, when we make a search, it would need to authenticate to the database and then pull from the database using the credentials supplied in the source code. So we can, and what I did do is look around here for a long while. I eventually realized if I looked in where the source code of this web page is, we know the web page or in the source code is authenticating against the database, the Postgres database. It must have some credentials in it. So if we cat out this dashboard, which is the page where you've got the search feature, go to the top, we can see it's connecting to the database. So it's connecting on localhost on port 5432. And it's applying the user Postgres, which is the current user I am, and it's applying the password here. So we've captured this Postgres user's password. So now we can do sudo tacl to see the capabilities. We can list out the commands the Postgres user can run as sudo, and we can see Postgres may run the following commands on Vaccine. That's the host name. So can run vi, which is like the text editor, as sudo, and it can specifically run to edit this file as sudo. So that gets us this next flag. What program can the Postgres user run as root using sudo? That's the vi file. And then the next logical thing to do is to look up, go to GTFOpen. So if you haven't seen this before, it consists of a lot of different binaries that can be used as vectors for privilege escalation, and it lists all the different types of ways you can get privilege escalation, and you can filter by it. So we're looking for sudo because we've got this capability to run sudo on the vi binary. So we can go sudo, and then we can add vi to see if this is possible, and there's the binary. If we go down here, we can sort of see a little POC, a little proof of concept of how this works. So you can use sudo to run as the sudo user, and then you do this taxi to supply a command, and the command you're running is this bin shell, this bin/sh shell. But the problem is we can only use this specific command. So we're going to have to change this proof of concept a little bit. We know we can run this command here, so let's just copy this. We can run sudo like this, and we're editing this config file, right? But we don't have this root shell, what we're really looking for. So let's just go back to this website. If you've played around with Vim before, I really recommend it. It's my favorite Linux text editor. You can see Vim has the feature to enter commands. So if I wanted to, for example, write the file, I would do this : and then write. Or if I wanted to quit, I would do the :q. If I wanted to write and quit, I would do this. If I wanted to search for a file, I would go like this and search for database, for example. It's got lots of features as text editor. This : and then if you look at the website, it's basically this one command is passing this command into this, like the command shell in Vim. So what we can do is basically replicate this. We're editing this file, where this process is now running under the user root. So we can pop bin sh or bin bash, for example. Let's just do bash, and we're now running as the root user. So I changed the command a little bit, but it's basically the same thing. I've now privilege escalated to root. So we can cd into root, and we can cat the root flag. The root flag's there, cat root.txt, and we can cd into, I think it was varlib PostgreSQL, and there's that user flag. So user.txt flag there. That is this challenge done. Sorry for the length of this one. It was a bit of a long one, but I wanted to explain it a decent detail. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next video.